Howdy, folks. Chuck Sheely here with Inside Cool Music Magazine, where we tell compelling stories from authentic musicians. And today we are here with Dudley and Dean, who have released a brand new work called Monet's Garden. Now, if you're not familiar with Monet's Garden, or well, I think everybody on the planet, it's fair to say, is familiar with the word Monet and his paintings, and he's a French painter, but he also has these gardens a little north of Paris, which are a spectacular place to be and sit and breathe and make indications on your whole life. So I'm very interested to see what Dean and Dudley Evenson here have to say about this project. And so welcome to Inside Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're honored to be here, Jack.
So you guys are really cooking out there. Like I read that you have, well, of course, you have like billions of streams. Billions of streams. So you've been at this quite a while. Yeah,
well, Dean Evenson is the name that has the billions of streams. So that's when somebody's searching there. I'm there too, but I'm more not quite.
Yeah, it's a billions streams on Pandora only.
Well, that was a couple of years ago. So now it's every. I mean, it's everything.
I don't know what the current rating is.
Yeah, quite a few. It's an honor to be able to reach out so far through this little technology we got, because we used to sell our music at, well, swap meets, crafts fairs, trade shows, massage conferences, healing, spa.
Whatever way we could.
We were out there, but we'd sell hundreds and then meet thousands of people. But now we're reaching out to millions. It's amazing.
So you would locate yourself in the genre of healing music and new age, yes, right?
Yes.
We're founders of that genre. We started in 1979, so there was no genre when we started.
Yeah, well, you're talking now, that begins with a killer story, right? Of going out to a desert in the middle of the night and getting ready to record birds and bugs and stars and stuff, something like that.
Yeah, I was inspired to go out and record nature, because one of the things I wanted to do was affects the people who are making decisions about nature, our environment, in the urban areas, and wanted to get some information into their systems that would let them feel nature more. And so their decisions would be more in alignment with that.
We'd been real inspired by Native American elders, because in the early 70s, we were out videotaping with the early portable equipment. And that's another whole story. But one of the very first things we did was go to the Stockholm UN Conference on the Environment. And we met 15 Native Americans, and they'd been sent over by Stuart Brand. You remember the Whole Earth Catalog?
Yes.
He started that, yeah, Whole Earth Catalog. So he was a tech person, and still is actually, but he wanted these Native Americans to be in Stockholm with all the diplomats to address their perspective about Mother Earth. So we were there, and we were, in our late 20s at the time. And it just so affected us. We'd never heard that even concept of Mother Earth. It was brand new. Now you sort of hear it all the time, but we knew about the environment. That's why we chose to go to Stockholm to make videos about the conference but we had no idea we'd be learning from the Native Americans who had been sent over. So it was a profound experience for us. And then it just became kind of an impetus for everything we've done since then. It was so powerful.
So you didn't realize that they were going to be there, the Native American?
You know that.
Oh.
I mean,
that would be a profound experience, especially with their point of view of what that point of view is going to be. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and us videotaping it, of course, got us into that energy even deeper.
So what was the most profound thing you took away from the experience that you did not have before you got there? If it was that profound, that means you've learned something. What was that?
That was that the earth was a living thing.
Cool.
That it wasn't just a place to get resources. It is a living thing that breathes, and the trees are all connected, and the birds are all connected. And the humans are part of that, not just the only thing, they're just a part of it.
Well, it's also the source of our physical reality. Everything physical comes from the earth, but also there's a deep spiritual, connection too. So it just we were already there. We were heading there in our own minds as young people, because during
Right.
the 60s, well, Dean and I met in 1968. So that was like, we were coming out of this profound period of protesting against the wars and protesting against discrimination, civil rights. But we didn't really yet know what we were for. That was, I remember being very aware of, well, what kind of world do we want to create? We knew it wasn't working, what was happening. So it was just like, we kept asking those questions, and we ended up with this video camera. It's a Sony Portapack, and we bought it in 1970.
It was a portable video camera that the deck weighed 35 pounds and the camera itself weighed 8 pounds.
Connected by a long cable, and you held it on a big thing over your
Right.
shoulder.
That was portable.
That was portable.
This is portable video, but basically it was, wow, so we were curious, and we, of course, now we're in the early 70s. So we followed our inclination. When we were curious about something, we went and videotaped it, and we videotaped Ram Dass and again,
Yeah, I read that.
as Indian gurus were just coming over, healers, massage was brand new. Everything was new. Yoga was new to our country, or, to at least our awareness. So we wanted to know what the spiritual path was, and how it related to, the planetary reality. So we were so fortunate. We have hundreds of hours of archival videos that we are already documented and digitized, and they're on our YouTube channel called Soundings Mindful Media. But
it was called so while you were doing all this exploration or research and all that, was it part of the music involvement at that time, or did this lead to a musical path? Were they analogous? Somehow they intertwine somewhere in your.
It starts way back when he was 10, but the music. I mean, you'll see videos of the Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead on our video channel. But
all right.
As Dean's story is where the music really began.
Yes, when I was 10 years old, I decided to take up the flute in a program that was a local school program. And so I knew I needed to play the flute. And it related to that picture with a guy beating the drum and carrying a flag, and that whole attitude.
Revolutionary War and the piccolo.
Yeah.
Right.
And the piccolo. So I related to that, and I kept at it and kept playing, and I'd play in church, because my society that I was involved with was the church. It was the evangelical church, very conservative.
Norwegian background. Well, your dad was the choir director.
Yeah, my dad was choir director, and he also helped me work with the services in the church, and I ended up playing solos for the whole church community. And so I got used to that, and it was all classical music that I was studying. But as I got older, I started to meander around and notice other things going on besides what was being told in the church. And so I followed that. I followed what my heart was telling me. And I just felt so close to bringing that quiet sound into a place which inspired people.
Well, your music teacher, what did he tell you?
Yeah, my music teacher said to me, don't try and make your living as a musician. It's much too difficult. So I went into college and studied molecular biology. I have actually got a master's in it. That was my answer to him telling me that. because science was the big deal at those times. Sputnik was happening,
Right.
competition between the USSR and us.
Sure.
And so I went into science.
Hmm.
And I got scholarships and all the sorts of stuff to keep going at it. But I found myself playing in a rock band that I formed and a folk group and making music tracks for art professors in their movies. And
One of those stories where it chooses you.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, very good. So let's scroll up to the part of your lifelong affair with French Impressionism. So how did that come about? By going, or did you just dig Monet pictures out of art books?
Yeah, it was art books. I'd go to a library and come back with a stack of 10, 15 books to read. I was a fanatic about it. And when I started edging into the Impressionists, I learned how they were radicals themselves.
Absolutely.
They went a different route than others had gone before them.
Wouldn't you love to sit at one of their tables when they're, out on the street, getting little foods and drinking their coffees or absinthe or whatever they did back then, and I always fantasize about sitting with those guys and being fly on the wall and what those conversations must have been, because it's a great art form that the art form sort of arrived as per discussions. A lot of it, like they talked about it, how to deal with light and things like that, and then they would go into that, so that they'd be like lecture, then they go into lab and do all it. I mean, it was a little back and forth, but it was a little like that too. So fascinating revolution on what painting is supposed to be about in the first place. Pissed off a lot of kings and queens, I think.
Yeah, most of the Impressionists work by being out in nature and painting scenes of nature in the location that the painting was. And Monet would take a position where he would study the color of and the lighting of the situation, and he would paint paintings that were related to, say, noon or 4 o'clock, and just work on a painting that was 4 o'clock, and he'd put it aside as the time went on to 6 o'clock, and he'd go to the next one. I
believe he did them on the hour in one day, the cathedral at Notre Dame, etc., and a variety of other things. I think, didn't he do haystacks as well, probably? And
haystacks, yeah.
And so that's it's a cool study, and it's a cool to watch how that is improvised, actually. And so with this is the cool part of the aspect of what makes your project here so cool, because you have analogous ideas that instead of happening this way in paint, they happen this way in audio. And so I'd like for you to please share with us, concepts or what's going on in your head about that. How do you do that?
You mean in terms of the music itself?
So as you're inspiring yourself by the works of Monet and the nature, and the way Monet is also influenced by nature, in what practical ways does that manifest itself in your music? Does it, so why would you pick up any particular instrument? Or do you imagine that the wind is blowing through the flower garden or something, and you're,
on one level, it's whatever works. on another level, it's deciding this piece is going to be about apples in springtime. And then I just think that, focus on that, and have the other musicians I'm working with go the same place.
I remember when he first started, when on the very first album, Desert Dawn Song, we were recording with Jonathan Kramer, our cellist friend, and so between Dean and the cellist, they both classically trained, but they were listening to the music or the bird song that he had recorded in the desert that, a few days before. So it was in that case for many of our early albums, we actually used the recordings of nature in different environments, and then that inspired the music. But what I remember thinking when they were playing together, it was like, they were just like it was nature. It was birds calling to each other. There was this communication, and nothing we've done has been written down. It's recorded and composed as it's being played, but really it's a communication process. So I think you mentioned nature, so that was original inspiration. And then he also mentioned the birds or the apple blossoms. That was when we did a collaboration with Li Shanting, who's a Chinese guqin player. And we chose not to use any nature sounds on that album. It was one of the first ones we did, called Tao of Healing. But what was interesting is the two of them would come up with that kind of concept, moonlight or, the apple blossoms, or things that would, you could imagine as a name of a painting or something like that. And so then they would play it, and it was just a kind of a touchstone of how to be, sensitive to sort of a similar thing. But really, I think why Dean's music has been so well received is because he's just had such amazing friends to collaborate with, and it's just been,
when you make your recordings in terms of production, do you do it as live takes and then edit, or do you overdub everybody one at a time, single file, or both?
Mostly one takes, but
live takes,
because
you're catching the energy of them playing together.
But
sure.
we don't shied away from adding sound to pieces too.
Mm-hmm.
It's the music we're after, not the
what Dean and I did
specific way of doing it.
Right.
When Dean and I did, we just love to play music together anyway. But when we recorded Monet's Garden, we were here in our home. Now everything's portable. We have a studio in Bellingham in town, but we live out in the county. So, but our engineer comes out, and so Dean was set up out on our new sun porch, and he was in the living room or something, and then I was out there. So we were separated, but we could see each other, and then we would just play my harp and his flute, and I play a hand harp and a troubadour harp. So we would play, or singing bowls. So we would be playing together. We would just say, we're going to just do this, and start with playing, and it just comes. And then we're trying to do shorter songs these days, so we could go on, play for a 20-minute song, but we like to keep it.
Gee whiz, can I come over? I would do that. I would love to do something like that. I mean, we do in our own way, but that's cool. I love that spirit, that's what it's about, right?
Absolutely. It's all about the relationship, and music is such a perfect metaphor for relationships, because it's all about and your harmonies or disharmonies or dissonances. And
I think that music and math, and music because of math, it is the great galvanizer. I mean, it doesn't matter when any part of your background is, if it's funky and groovy and feels good, it doesn't matter where you come from, opposite sides of wherever, you can still dig it together, or dance, or you can share it. And there's no other element. Is maybe water, food, things like that, but it's an essential element, just like those things, because of that.
It's also what we've noticed about our kind of, every kind of music, really, there's an intention involved. So our intention is to create a peaceful space with the music, to create a peaceful environment. Some people their intention is to get you moving and dancing, and some people might want you to hum along and do the song. or some people might want to disturb you in some way, but that's obviously not our intention. So what we've found is that, that the music is almost like a carrier wave of intention. And so we're just trying to, in this case, the kind of music that we make is to carry the peace, and peace through music's our motto. It's been our motto ever since. In fact, we're just literally in the process of starting a Peace Through Music Foundation.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. What's it? Do you have a website for that yet?
It will be up soon, but probably by the time this airs, it's Peace Through Music, and it's THROUGH.foundation. That's the URL that will be there.
So he made the music with the nature sounds and then started getting feedback from people that they were using it for kids in a cancer ward to mellow the kids out.
Or chronic stress and biofeedback, or just, doing their yoga or massage. We
way beyond what we had thought was going on. It opened us up and others to this more healing music.
Well, Dean had a little track on the B side of Desert Dawn Song, and it was kind of, I think you'd been listening to, anyway, somebody, but it was a guitar and it was a vocal song. It was a singer-songwriter song. So he had this song on there, which was a nice song, Sing to the Sunrise, and it was a beautiful song he'd come up with. And we got feedback because we were selling, we duplicate the tapes ourselves, sell them at the swap meet. And then people come up a week or two later and say, I love the A side, but there's a song on the B side. It's distracting. I'm really trying to meditate or trying to do healing work. And so we literally were able, based on feedback, to change the B side to just add another instrumental song, because that's how people were choosing to use the music. So that was just kind of a fun way that, with having a direct relationship with your audience and your fans, it was a way to make the shift, because we weren't trying to make a big musical statement. We've got to say this and that kind of thing. It was more, we were doing this as service for what people seem to need in the world. Because
so I think I read that you have 80 albums collectively.
90, but I mean, it's
90
DVDs, and I mean, it just keeps going. So we've been making DVDs as well, but that doesn't even count all the videos that we produced, and they're not even listed. And these are ones that we've released through Sounding.
That's pretty prolific. I think you win on prolific. Yeah, that's for sure. So you guys are constantly putting things out, basically all the time. Yeah.
We enjoy it. It's our mission. It's our purpose, and we're having a good time. And we're magnets for fabulous musicians. We've just been working with with Scott Huckabee. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's an awesome guitarist, along Michael Hedges' line or that kind of thing. And Tom Barabas, who fabulous pianist. Dee Rachel lives in Mexico. She plays with us.
Then we have some musicians in Russia, because we went to Russia on a peace collaboration move in the late 80s.
Oh, really?
We organized a citizen diplomacy tour. And that's something we'd heard about in this church we were going to. And we thought, we want to do that. We want to help. And so we took musicians and dancers, and there was a skateboard artist and a poet. I mean, it was just a puppeteer, and we took them all, and our goal was just to meet and mingle with Native people there. And we did. And we I don't know if you've ever heard of Sergei Kuryokin, but he was an avant-garde pianist at the time. He's since passed away, but he was phenomenal. Anyway, we met some fabulous people over there.
Just sort of a cultural soiree, if you will, that you just met and exchanged culture.
But the goal of citizen diplomacy, and I think we probably need more of that now, is there was just this, we were coming out of the Cold War. And so our Peace Through Music mission was obviously about, inner peace for sure, but also any way we can contribute. And that was a big deal happening in the 80s, of people going over to Soviet Union just so Americans could know them and they could know us. And we would say, hey, we don't have to be enemies.
Well, that's an interesting point in itself that when you say inner peace, I mean, I think we need to achieve inner peace as a tool to create social peace. I mean, I kind of have to be in a grounded place to make that happen. So I think it's wonderful what you do to try to create a space of peace in your music, which I must say that you're very, very proficient at doing. I've had it on all day, just kept hitting stuff. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I enjoy that kind of music anyway, the whole Windham Hill thing. And, I've seen Michael Hedges a bunch of times and things like that back in the day, obviously. So anyway, well, tell everybody where we can all come and see you and stay in touch.
Well, our website, soundings.com. That's the best place. And if you're on any social media, search Dean Evenson, Evenson, or Dudley Evenson, but you'll find more on him for sure. And then we have a couple YouTube channels that are pretty amazing. Where you can listen to the whole Monet's Garden album on Soundings of the Planet YouTube. And that's going to be, it's called Springtime in Monet's Garden.
Man, I totally recommend you do that, folks, too. It's a wonderful piece of work. It's a wonderful piece of art. And yeah.
And then we have a lot of shorter videos. We're doing shorter meditation. So it's a nice source. And then our other channel is called Soundings Mindful Media. And that's where you'll get to watch the early videos that we do with Native Americans. Hopi Prophecy. We've got early video of Ram Dass. We also had the entire video we edited at the United Nations conference in Stockholm in 1972. And that's a full hour. Really an interesting experience. We met so many amazing people. Margaret Mead was there and a bunch of international hippies, but also just, the inspiration of all the people who were there.
Yeah.
We got turned on completely.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, that's a heavy time. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the 1992 conference
in Rio
also.
And that showed Dean playing with John Denver, if you want to know. Okay, so if you really want to know some more background, in 77, we were at Chief Foolscrow's 88th birthday powwow, because that was after Dean had been to Wounded Knee in 73. But then we get up in the morning and somebody says, oh, John Denver's here. So we went over and connect with him, and then he and Dean ended up playing. So there's a clip of that on Soundings Mindful Media channel. Yeah, but what you don't maybe haven't addressed is what Dean did when he came to New York after he got out of graduate school. He became a recording engineer. So I think that's kind of an important part of your story too.
Yeah.
Is it so like what it's that? I mean, I guess now you have a studio and you have the power to pull all these ideas together, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he worked with Regent Sound Studio and recorded Atlantic record artists. Who else?
Mose Allison, Roberta Flack,
Eric Clapton.
You engineered those guys?
Yes.
Not the entire albums, but parts.
I was
a
participant engineer in the project.
Well, you recorded Eric Clapton. He'd just been to the dentist and you told him he needed to tune his guitar, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't quite right on. So
what did he say? Did he say thanks, or was he like, yeah?
No,
he tuned it.
he tuned it. He didn't say anything.
Just do it. Yeah, that's a pro. I guess he's a pro.
Professional. Yeah. And he came in with this tiny little amp that he was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
How he got his sound.
Well, a lot of great records, like all the Led Zeppelin records, they're all out of little amps. They're little amps and they just crank little tweeds and stuff like that, Yeah.
Another video you'll see on the Soundings Mindful Media channel is with the Jefferson Airplane in Winterland in 1970, I think it was. Yeah, that was in 70. Yeah, because our very first video we made was the Jefferson Airplane, but that was in New York at the Fillmore East. And then we became friends with our friend was.
How is it that you made the video? Was that like an officially
the first
sponsored video, or did you bootleg this stuff?
First one, we just showed up and
They didn't know. We
They-
just walk in with this big porta pack. They didn't even know what it was. They didn't care. Those days, nobody cared. But
Right.
the second one was we'd already were friends with the Airplane, so we got permission to record this particular concert. It was with,
Like you're friends with Cantner and those guys?
well, more with Marty Balin and
Okay.
manager. Our friend was dating him, and
Hmm.
so yeah, so we were doing that, and they liked the idea of getting it videoed, so they gave us some money to buy this long cable. Then, and it was the day after Janis Joplin passed away, so Marty Balin didn't even play at that one. But then you probably heard of Papa John Creech. Have you ever heard of him?
Absolutely.
Black fiddler. It was the first night he ever played with the Airplane, and he blew everybody away. And we have a video of that.
Wow.
Dean is like down at the bottom of everybody's feet, and Grace Lick is singing it. Oh my God, it was amazing. So that's on our Soundings Mindful Media channel, among many other things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of music that's come in from Dean playing flute when he was 10 to the recording, being a recording engineer in New York. And then just the video was a whole period of time. And then we finally started our label in 1979.
Very
And
good.
that was because we recorded a Ram Dass lecture in Tucson, and they let us sell the cassette tapes for $5, and we got 50 orders. And so we're like, oh, wait a minute, people have cassette players at home. We've been doing this 1/2-inch black and white reel-to-reel video, which nobody could play anywhere except a few libraries or art museums somewhere.
Mhm.
And so we decided to kind of start making our music, and had a few other little albums we made along with our friends, and then the Ram Dass lecture. And so that became our first 5 cassettes that we produced in 1979, and then it kept growing from there.
Yeah, I was playing this kind of music before we were publishing it.
Yeah.
I looked back at the early videos, and when I added my flute track to it, it was this type of music that we are playing these days.
We discovered when we started researching Monet, of course, when we went there, but also just later we came back and we just read so many books and really felt like we had so many parallels with him, because he was an innovator in his time. He loved to work outside, paint en plein air, which was the thing that was happening with the Impressionists. They used to be, people might do a sketch out in nature and then they come back and finish the painting in their studio. But with Monet, as you know, he did it outside. He struggled a lot at the beginning. He's, struggled as he had a family. He had 6 kids to take care of with his second wife, with his first wife who died, and his second wife. So he was like a father, family man, really caring for his family, working his tail off, prolific as heck. Every time you turn around, there's another bridge or Japanese bridge or the lily pads or something. And then he also found a success in his own life, which was kind of fun for us to realize, because he was a struggling artist initially, but then he kept with it and ended up being very, very successful in his life. And then he lived out in nature. He lived away from, he didn't want to be in Paris. He wanted to be out there in the country. And so they took an old cider mill and renovated it and made it into a home. And there was a barn next door, which became a studio. And so I think there was an apple orchard, since it was a cider mill. And then he took down a lot of those apple trees, but added flowers, because he just didn't want to go anywhere. He just wanted to be home and paint. And so he planted the most amazing, colorful gardens, as you know, because you've been there, but just the different patches of color and seasons and stuff. So
right, it's its own composition.
Yeah, we even have many of the same plants in our gardens out here, because
I would imagine, yeah.
So we're just kind of like, it's just been fun to kind of study his life and feel such a resonance with the many parallels that our lives seem to.
What's going to be next after you do this? Do you have anything on the horizon, or do you wait till you get there?
We're still checking things out for the next project. Sometimes we have projects lined up for 3 or 4 in a row, but Monet's Garden, we put a lot of intention into it, and we're going to keep at it.
You're still applying the intention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're learning to promote it too, because it used to be you knew how to promote. Now you got to figure out how to let people know who the heck you are and who are those people.
Well, everybody here who's watching this interview is gonna check it out. So that's for sure. That should help, right?
I'm
Yeah.
sure it will. Yeah. Yeah. No, we've got some great musicians right in our own region that we play with. Phil Heaven is our engineer. He plays really good viola, and so we've done a lot of collaborations with him, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then people come up and they're like, we just did an album with Deobrat Mishra, who is in India. He's a 11th generation vocalist, devotional chanter, but he also has been playing sitar, he and his father, but he's just was here in 2019, which was a big year for us because it was our 40th anniversary. But he came here and we got to record his album, Yoga Mantra. And so it's 7 chants, including the Gayatri Mantra. And it's just it's kind of like a cross between, I would say, Ravi Shankar and Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. So you're not going to see many sitarists singing or many singers playing sitar, but he is phenomenal. And he teaches yoga and Anad Yoga, which is the yoga of sound. So he's doing all sorts of Zoom things now from Varanasi, India, right there on the Ganges. So there's always those kind of collaborations, and people are always asking us to, hey, how about this? So
that future is wide open, isn't it?
We're excited to see what comes next, but it will definitely be Dean playing flute with somebody or other.
Well, I look forward to it too. Please keep us posted. So we thank you very much for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, if you had a great time, make sure you go visit their websites and the YouTube especially, that you'll be there for the next year checking it out. And if you had a good time with us, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to our newsletter, tell all your friends about it. Find us on all the social media channels that you see right there. And if you have ideas for Inside Cool, or even better, if you have questions for Dean and Dudley, please let us know. I'll send them along and we'll make that happen and you can find out more. In the meantime, keep enjoying music. Have a great day. Stay cool.
Thank
Peace and
you.
love, peace through music. Blessings. Thank you, Chuck.